Foragers, a game by Steve Finn, the same designer of the modern classic Biblios. Foragers is a game that I didn't know much about. I don't know how I stumbled upon it. Then the publisher was kind enough to send me a review copy, and so I was very glad to try it. In general, I saw pictures online. It looked a little bit like Carcassonne. It looks like you go around and you pick up stuff. So that's fun stuff. I like to acquire stuff, as you may know from my collection of board games. So we are in prehistoric times. You represent, you control a tribe, or maybe just a very motivated individual that goes around, grab resources from the board, and then shares them with the community. You have a pawn that indicates your position on the board, and the board, as you can see, is modular. It is made of different tiles, so each game you may have different configurations. Also, the initial configuration changes based on number of players, and as the game progresses, more tiles may be added, more areas with more resources may be discovered. Each player has a personal board that they use to record the level of energy, indicated by that cube there. It will go up and down, up as you store it, as you accumulate it, down as you spend it, mainly to run. That's an action that you can take. And then you have most of the board devoted to collecting resources that you'll pick up along the way as the game progresses. At the core, this is a action selection worker placement game in terms of what you can do, and a pick and delivery game in terms of what you're trying to achieve. As for the action selection worker placement, there is an interesting element here, that is the fact that the actions that are available and that you will reserve and perform by using your action cubes can change from turn to turn. Now, there is a common card that is always on the table and can be used by any player to reserve and perform actions, but then each player also has a deck of cards representing different sets of actions. Now, what happens is that at the beginning of each turn, each player draws 3 of these cards, then each player selects one, this looks what I want to do this turn. And then you return the other 2 on top of the deck. This being said, there aren't like really stratospheric differences. I mean, I like the idea in general, but in terms of the execution, there are like so many differences from card to card. It doesn't feel like, whoa, finally I got that card. In any case, once every player has their own new set of actions, players will alternate reserving actions. So you simply place a cube on a space on your card or on the common card. You resolve the action, then the next player goes, and you continue like this until all actions have been resolved. And then you perform a couple of other actions, and then meaning general upkeep functions, and then the game is, well, the turn is over. Now, as for the actions, the symbol on the card indicates the action that you are selecting, and the number indicates the quantity, the amount of points or resources that will be involved, or locations that will be traveled. This action here is traveling, so in particular walking, and you can move from location to location by up to the number indicated by the icon for walking, and you move your guy on the board and from location to location following the net of roads or paths that you see here. You can also move in another way, which is running, and you do so by spending energy points, and you can do that before or after your action, the one that you reserve with the cube, and the number of energy points that you spend to run is of 2 energy per space, 3 energy per space if you're playing with only 2 players. Also, as I'm moving, if I pass through an opponent in one of these food areas with resources, some areas you cannot brawl, but if I'm doing it in an area where it is allowed and I have a higher energy, I can brawl with the opponent and I can steal victory points from them. But I'm a very peaceful forager, so I never use that option. I just prefer to go around and collect stuff. So I move around on the board trying to collect stuff, which you can do through the collect action, and then you collect a number of resources equal to the number indicated indicated on the action that you're using, or the cube that you're using. So that's the forage action. Here are also these tokens that are placed randomly on the board, first down at the beginning, then you're played face up, as opposed to resources, fish, cattle or animals, and fruit. Those are determined by the icons on the board. Tools are placed randomly, still on the icons, and you can pick up a tool by using the corresponding action. Those tools go on your board in the corresponding space, and you can have only up to 2 per. And tools will help you collect to forage extra fish, extra animals, extra meat, I guess, and extra fruit. +1 for each tool that you have. Well, speaking of the collection of resources, when you collect a resource, you put it here in the first box, just like that. And that indicates freshly collected resources that are very fresh, very nutritious, and they give you 3 energies if you eat them when they are there. As the game progresses, your resources will spoil. How hard was life before refrigerators were invented, so your food becomes less valuable. And so, for example, if I'm eating my piece of fruit while my food is here, then each piece of fruit only allows me to get 2 points of energy, here 1, and when it falls off the board, then it's simply rotten, completely spoiled, it cannot be used. It's rotten and unedible even by prehistoric standards, so you can imagine. It must be almost as bad as some of the yogurt that is in my refrigerator right now. But I digress. Speaking of eating, yes, using the eat action, you can eat a number of your resources, and you gain energy accordingly based on where the resource is on the spoil track here. You may rest, which also allows you to get energy, and you simply get the number of energy equal to the number indicated by the rest icon when you take that action. You can discover new places, go where no caveman has gone before. You need to be in a place that is adjacent to an open path, and you take that action, and you add a new tile and the corresponding resources to the board. Super mega, very important. You can share. Sharing is caring, and it was like that in prehistoric times, with the exception of when I hit you on the head when I was moving through you, and I have an advantage. Now, however, I am all holier than thou, and I'm sharing with the community. I go around the fire, and I share, and I get a lot of social credit and respectability for that. When you are in one of these spaces where these tokens that are placed randomly at the beginning of the game, when I'm in one of those places, I can discard the necessary number of resources and take the corresponding token. So with 3 fish, I can take this token here. With 5 animal tokens, I could get that one. 4 fish, I can get that one. And when I collect these tokens here, sharing food from the community and becoming very popular because of that, then I also place the token on my board, and I put it in the area that corresponds to the color of the fire, or better I should say of the fire icon. For example, here is the red fireplace, the yellow fireplace. I don't know, the words are going in one direction, they might another. The yellow fireplace, then I put it here on the yellow circle of rocks. If I get this token here from the green area, then I put it in the green area of my board. So I will have tools, I will have piles of shared tokens here. The food will keep moving, because yes, you may want to know how does it move. After all players have taken their actions, you draw a spoilage card from the stack, and that simply indicates how resources are getting old. They are not always getting spoiled at the same rate, as you can see, but simply every player will move their tokens by the indicated number of spaces from left to right towards the unedible area of the board. And pretty much this is how the game works. It repeats the procedure, that is, get a new action card, everybody takes their action to spoil the food, and finally when all spoilage cards have been used, the game is over and you proceed to the final scoring, where players, as it happens often in games of this type, will get a chance of scoring some extra games, some extra points, which is very important because that means it gives a little more of long-term strategy. As the game progresses, you're trying to figure out how to get the best bonuses at the end. You score a victory point for each level of energy that you have. So, and you're also allowed to eat at the end right before the scoring. So energy / strength gives you points. Also, you score victory points equal to the number on your sharing tokens. So those numbers simply represent victory points. You also get bonuses for the number of places where you have shared your food. So basically the number of circles where you have dropped your food is indicated there. You get an extra amount of points for collecting, for specializing, for collecting sets of the same resource. Also, the number of tools that you have will grant you some extra points at the end. You put together points from all of those sources, and at the end the player with the highest total is Master Forager and winner of the game.
Foragers, well, I did like it, but I did not fall in love with it. It's like a good recipe and somebody forgot an ingredient so that would have made it a little saltier, a little spicier, a little more exciting. I did not dislike anything specifically about this game. It's just that as I was playing it, I never felt that tingling down my spine that I have when a game is really exciting. Of course, there are thematic games that are exciting because of the action that's happening, or you have Euro-style games that are still very exciting because of the dynamics that occur, because trying to catch up, because trying to create a chain of effects. It's more like a proportional and more abstract form of excitement, but it can be very real. Here, everything flowed well, past the fact that you have to learn all of those icons, all of those effects, but I've played many games that are much more demanding in the department. They have more effects, more actions, etc. It's a normal, it's not even a particularly steep learning curve. There's a little bit of that. And yet, after I did all those things, performed the functions, and simply did all the things to do in the design, everything was fine, but nothing was mind-blowing, nothing was particularly attractive or exciting. In a sense, actually, what's funny, it almost felt like, although it's not the simplest game that there is out there, I almost felt like it was those games like my first blank insert version of, my first Agricola, my first Carcassonne. It almost looked like the simpler version of a more complicated game, and that, as far as I know, doesn't exist. Just because everything was very linear, everything was like 2 and 2 is 4, everything was very predictable. You collect resources, you try to put them together, you drop them off, and that's it. I avoid being hit on the head by people that are stronger than me, but I can also run faster than them if need be. It's, what can I say? A good game, like a good book or a good movie, a good everything, is more than the sum of the parts. Here I have all these mechanics that I like. Pick up and deliver. I play train games. Action, selection of actions, I liked it very much. I'm not playing a heavily thematic game, is one of the mechanics that I like the most because of the tension that comes from having to struggle for limited actions and trying to figure out what you want to do. So I have to decide if I want something that is just good for me in the absolute sense, or something that maybe is not the best thing, but proportionally can give me an advantage because I'm getting in your way. I'm setting an action that now you won't be able to perform. And yet here is implemented again in a somewhat bland way, maybe also because of the fact that I can only get in your way up to a certain point because some actions are on your card and I cannot interfere with those, and the ones in the common card are good, are interesting, but well, they are what they are. And yes, so you may see players that first go for the common card and try to fill it up, or at least to take all the options that the opponents may not have on their cards, but doesn't get to the point where it really becomes intense, where it's really a nail-biting decision like you have in other games that have this idea of reserving actions, placing your resources in a certain way, fighting for limited resources. And yes, I can go and grab all the fish from that tile, but the next tile has a lot of fish too, so there is that. It almost felt like a little bit, I don't know, a textbook exercise, like a textbook explaining, demonstrating these mechanics of pickup and delivery, of action selection, worker placement, etc., etc. And like a good textbook, it explains everything well, it shows everything well, but it's not nearly as exciting as a prose work, as a fiction work, as storytelling. And this is the point. It almost feels a little, the game design didn't take many risks. Everything is the way it should be, but also precisely because of that reason, it doesn't stand out in any significant way. I almost think, when would I play this game? I don't know, when I want to do my first blank worker placement game. But even in that case, I think that there are other games that I can use to show this type of mechanics, this sort of like interaction here, to new players that do not know it yet. Even as an introductory game, it doesn't shine in any significant way. And to me, this is probably the problem with this game. It's not a bad game, but it's unexceptional in every possible way. Component-wise, I think the components are pretty good. I enjoyed using them. I like the wooden elements, etc., etc. There are a couple of little nitpicks that I could have about this and that. For example, it does bother me slightly that some of the player pieces are also the same color as the resources that everybody is struggling to find. All of the resources are squares, and maybe just because we are being spoiled these days, you know, because you have a meeple that looks like a person, another wooden piece that looks like a cat, another like a cheese, another like, well, everything, because we have had these creatively shaped wooden components. We have been spoiled, and now, oh, my fish is a rectangle, it's square. That makes no sense. Again, maybe we've been spoiled, but this has sort of become one of the standards of that you expect from components in Eurogames, and so this still feels a little bit below that standard. Other than that, the wooden components are still good. I like the tiles. I like the presentation. It's just that mechanically, again, it feels like not more than the sum of the parts. Every part works and is well integrated with the rest, but the game overall feels unexceptional, and this to me as well. The problem with Foragers, not a bad game, but utterly unexceptional.